Okay, going back to that last point in the anticline here, one thing that you may want to say is, well, actually, I don't completely agree with you with making bed less steep here, because we can see here that we've got a 40-degree dip towards the southeast, which suggests that the beds are still steep in the middle of the anticline here, which doesn't fit well with the way we've adjusted the dip of the bed to account for the change in thickness. Well, the argument I will use against that is the fact that, well, when you move in that direction, you can see that the anticline seems to become broader and less pronounced. Here the dip is 20 degrees, it's 5 degrees here. So I would argue that this is the termination. We're getting towards the termination of the anticline, or it's certainly getting less pronounced. And that would justify why the beds are less steep when you get along the line of section compared to here. This is just a transition to the edge, to the termination of the anticline. And anyway, you will need to make this change, because you can see that even in OMB, you can see this change from like the exposure is much wider on one side than the other. And this is not a result of topography, because the hills are as steep on that side than this side. So you need to change the dip of the bed to be able to accommodate for this change. The last zone of complexity that I want to talk about here now is that area here. And there's a couple of things here. Well, the first one is what's actually happening in this area. So again, feel free to draw on a piece of paper, freehand, what's happening. And we're going to start from here. We start with, let's say, we've got SK, then we've got SCY here, then we got to get into SCL again. I'm doing a flat topography because it's easier at that stage, but when you add the topography, it will become clearer. When we get SC, then we have SCL again, then a bit of SCY, then back into SCL, SC, and OG. Okay, so how do we explain this? Okay, so let's look at the dip and dip direction. Here we have beds that are essentially dipping in that direction, which sort of makes sense. If we look at the succession, we've got OG, SC, SCL, SCY. And then SCY, we can see that on the other side, the beds are dipping the other way. So what we have here is basically a syncline here, and that's why SCL is coming back here. Then we've got SC here in the middle. And when we get on that side, we can hear, well, we don't have that many dip and dip direction symbol here, but we have this 35, and we need to explain the SCL coming back on the other side. So we're going to have another anticline here to be able to bring the SCL here, and then the SCY, and then we get back into that morphology with this northwest side of the anticline. So what we have here is basically a syncline, an anticline, and the contact between SC and OG is coming back up, but is not going through the surface, and that's why OG doesn't appear in the middle of the anticline here. So that's roughly what the structure looks like in this area. Now in the detail, you can see there's quite a bit of asymmetry, and in particular, this is the place where you've probably constrained the thickness of SCL, because what we have is a little bit of SCL, but you can see that this is a hill, by the way, but I keep it flat for simplicity. But here we have beds that are dipping 70 degrees towards the northwest, and here we have an 80 degrees overturn towards the southeast, and then here we've got a 90 degrees, so nearly vertical. So in the past, people have got really confused by that, because we were thinking, oh, it looks like there's a bed that is overturned and then it becomes vertical. Well, the idea is that all this measurement probably talk about the same thing, which is that contact here between SCY and SCL. Because you can see that if you've got a bed that is dipping 70 degrees towards the northwest here, it doesn't need much for it to be overturned 80 degrees towards the southeast. So what we have here is just a bed that is very steeply dipping towards the northwest, and then depending on where you are, like it may be bent a bit more as you move towards that part of the section, leading to the beds being overturned. So you go from a 70 degrees bed to a vertical to an overturn. So it just means that that contact is just very, very steep. So on your line of section, this is what you want to show, is this contact being very steep, nearly vertical here. And this contact is going to come back up. And you will see that as a result of that, this is where we know that SCL cannot be more than 3, maybe 4 millimeter thick, based on what we can see here in that part of the cross section. Okay, so I think the last point, very, very final point I want to make, is related to OJ here at the termination of the section. Because if you look at OJ here, again, you've got the thickness of OJ constrained here on the anticline. And how thick is OJ? Again, we're talking about maybe 2-3 millimeters. So think about how you can accommodate this not very thick OG here, and knowing that there's no reason why the thickness of OJ should change between here and here. So how do you accommodate this?